Welcome to Reliably Republican. I'm Casey Crosbie, your host. I'm treasurer of the RNC, and Reliably Republican is a show where we get to talk to Republicans from within the Republican National Committee every week to learn more about their states and what they're doing on the ground, how they got started. And today I am very excited that we have Dr. Rob Steele, who's the National Committeeman for Michigan, as well as Miss Hima Kolanagireddy, who is the newly elected National Committeewoman. We're going to be discussing the big victory for President Trump in Michigan. They're going to talk a little bit about the election integrity efforts that were on the ground and how successful they were, as well as we're going to talk about the get out the vote and some of the different groups that they targeted where they had huge success. So please remember, if you like what you're hearing, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe this podcast. And it's just truly an honor to have you all listen every week. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Reliably Republican, where we talk to insiders within the Republican Party to give people a feel for how hard we all work and how we win elections and all the work that goes into putting us in the position to win. And today, I'm so blessed to have with me two people from a very important state. I've got Dr. Rob Steele, who's the National Committeeman from the state of Michigan, and his counterpart, the National Committeewoman from Michigan, Ms. Hima Kolanagireddy. Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I imagine you guys are doing really well this week. What a week, right?
Oh, yeah, huge election. And our only disappointment was not being able to get our Senate candidate across the line. He was a great candidate and super closest Senate race ever in Michigan history, about approximately 20,000 votes out of a couple of million. 3 million or no more than that. Yeah.
We were all watching, hoping he could pull it out. It looked like he was going to, but I mean, what an effort. And the fact that President Trump was able to pull out such a big victory in Michigan, I mean, was just amazing. And before we start jumping right into the campaign, I want to give you all an opportunity to tell me a little bit about yourself. I mean, I'm going to start with Hima because she's the newest member from your state on the RNC. And just tell us a little bit about your involvement. I mean, I've read, Hima, that you were a 6th district chair, grassroots. You've run for office. You're a business owner, entrepreneur, very impressive, and such a great addition to the committee. And so just tell us a little bit about how you got involved, and we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I am an legal immigrant to the country. I became a citizen in 2015. And then I knew that 2016 was my first time that I would be eligible to vote. So I was doing the research and everybody just told me that, oh, yeah, we vote Democrat. And I'm like, why is that? And what do they stand for? Majority of the people had no idea. And I'm like, I don't roll that way. So let me just kind of explore which party I belong to. And when I started like noticing both the parties, at that time, the slate was full. I mean, we had many candidates on both sides. And I'm like, okay, so I'm listening and following, and then kind of quickly realized that everything that Republicans are talking, that is basically how I feel, like the value system. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I belong in this tent, versus everything that I've been told till this date. So then I started like kind of, realizing that maybe I belong in the Republican tent. And then when the whole slate started going down to narrowing down, and finally it was Trump. I mean, I always knew Trump as a person, that he was a businessman and he was popular for many other things. So I'm like, oh, wow. First I thought like, oh, come on, he stands no chance. But then everything that he would say was like, I'm like, wow, nobody says things like that. I mean, as a politician would never say that. And I think that's what attracted me to him, because everything he would say was very strategic. And I think he knew the problem and he had the guts to say it. And I just really liked it. And when he was the candidate, I was very excited to vote for him. I voted for him in 2016. And when he won, I felt like it was just my vote that made the difference. I was very, very happy. Yeah. And I found my home. That Republican Party is where I belong, because all the values align with my beliefs. And then I wanted to get more involved. And I'm like, okay, I want to do something now that I'm a citizen, I want to do more. And then I got elected as a precinct delegate in 2018. Then I used to do all the precinct delegate stuff. In 2020, I was asked to be at the TCF, which is now the Huntington Place, which was the infamous TCF after the 2020 election. What I saw there became a big story. Like, I testified about it at the House Oversight Committee, and that kind of went viral for, the things I said was not about Dominion or anything else. The things I said was about the undertrained staff and them targeting Republican poll challengers and why ID is important to vote and all of that stuff. So when I had like 2 million hits on that video, and everybody was like,
Wow.
Yeah, I just was attacked in reverse, and we had to like close the doors, like keep our business doors locked, stop answering phone calls because we had threats from every side. In fact, people posted my address, like home address, online, to be doxxed. And it was a scary time. But then after the dust settled, I kind of was looking back, and my business, which had a 5-star rating on Google, was brought down to 1 star, like in a week. So that all of that attacks only made me, after a little bit, after a few days passed, I just looked back and I'm like, you know what? I must have said something that ticked these people off, and I'm going to do more of it. So I've been called white supremacist. And then I said, well, you know what? Since I'll wear that as a badge of honor in that way, brown-faced white supremacist. But then I'm going to do more of it because they didn't like a person who looks like me saying the things I said. So I said, well, you know what? I will do more of it, more like on a front line. So then I got gone on a county committee. Then I ran for Congress in a very, very blue district where Rob also ran. And then although I lost, it just kind of brought in a lot of new people into the party because I knocked down doors that Republicans usually don't knock. So I kind of realized that the key to changing things is us knocking on the doors that we never thought would open for us. And this election proved that to me because we bring in these minority communities that have the same value system, but we all, but traditionally have always voted Democrat. But if we can actually align with them, that we all have the same values, we care about the same things, we can bring them into our party. So I think that became my
That's amazing. And you've come so far so quickly. And Rob, I should have said Dr. Rob. I like to call you Dr. Rob. Is a cardiologist, and he too has been involved in the grassroots, I think, for years. But you've been on the committee a little longer. I mean, maybe just briefly describe kind of your path and what brought you to getting involved at such a high level within the Michigan Republican Party.
Yeah, well, first off, Casey, it's great to have you as the treasurer. You've done a great job in digging into some of this stuff with the compliance and the budget, and was critical. And that's one thing that grassroots need to understand is that we've got people who are serious about looking after things and are aligned with their interests. But my background, I belong to the Heritage Foundation since I was in my 20s and did a lot of other conservative activism stuff with Mackinac Center and Hillsdale College and all these things, and had never been involved in partisan politics. I mean, when I got involved with Heritage, I mean, there wasn't even the internet. I mean, it was like a stapled together trifold.
You're aging yourself now.
So in 2010, when everything was happening, and so then I got involved with the Tea Party, and so Tea Party, was a little more pointed at partisan, though it was still really focused on a couple of big issues like the budget and spending and so forth. So then in 2010, I decided to run for Congress, and had a great time. Ran for Congress, working full time as a cardiologist, and actually was ahead until late in the night against a guy who's longest serving in the history of the United States, John Dingell, and that was kind of a crazy thing. I was on all the national media on a regular basis, raised more money than any challenger in the country. And the interesting thing about my run for Congress is I'd never been to a Republican meeting before when I ran for Congress. I went to my first Republican meeting after I ran for Congress. And then, of course, after everything that happened there, people wanted me to do some more. So, I was on the statewide ballot for a university board a couple of times, and then ran for RNC, and I came in with President Trump in 2016. And I think, for a lot of the people who wonder about, the RNC being a bunch of, insiders and that kind of thing, it's at least now not true. I mean, even when President Trump came in, when I came in 2016, by 2018, over 60% of the RNC is new, and now it's around 80%. I mean, I've only been on what, 2 terms, 8, 9 years, and I think I'm in the oldest 30 on the committee, and that makes you, in the top 15 probably. It's crazy how young the committee is, and people just have, they can get misinformed by the conservative media as well. But anyway, it's been a great organization. In the last handful of years, we've really made a lot of progress with our two big projects, being election integrity and the early vote project. And they both went very well this year, and they'll be even better next time.
Yeah, so I'm glad. That's a great, kind of my first question, because in 2020, we saw a lot of shenanigans across the country. I think Michigan was no exception, for sure with that. And, tell me a little bit about what you guys noticed the most, maybe this cycle. Obviously, one, it was so exciting. I was down in Palm Beach for the results with the Trump organization. And as all these states were coming in, people were just going crazy there, cheering on, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, as they were rolling in. It was just such an amazing experience. But, I know how hard you all put in the work on the ground. But, tell me a little bit about the election integrity efforts and what you all noticed this time versus last time, and the preparation that went into it, and the investment in your state. Can you comment?
Yeah, let me make a real quick comment. And she's done a great job and been really involved in the on the ground election integrity stuff. But let me just make a comment for your listeners, because I just see and hear it all the time. Most people don't understand that the RNC was out of this game for 35 years. And that consent decree that prevented us from doing everything that we've just done in this election, we were not allowed to do that legally until really 2020 was the first time. And it doesn't make any difference how good your players are and how good your coach is. If you've never run the plays before, you're just not going to be as good at it the first time you do it. And so 2020, we had a chance to get involved. The consent decree, basically our first report came out. Harmeet chaired the group that I was on with her 12 people. And that came out in December of 2019. And here the election is 2020. And in 2020, we still filed 90 lawsuits in the 2020 election cycle. But again, we were all brand new. We didn't have a bench who had run the plays. Our attorneys weren't experienced like the 35 years worth of Dems being unopposed. And so now we're in a new era, and it was a big focus with Chairman Whatley. And of course, Rana started the full-time election integrity department. But Michigan is a great example of what happened. And maybe, Hima, you want to tell a little bit about what we saw in Wayne County and how much progress we made there.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Yeah, everything he said, I agree. So in 2020, because I was the person that was on the floor and I witnessed a lot of things, that became my pet peeve. So when I became, and everything that I've done since then was geared towards election integrity. So when I became an RNC member, we were really not given any tasks as such because we were new, and then we were all focused on elections. So I said, you know what? It's okay. I'm just immediately going to pick this up because this is important. Because like Rob said, we can have great players, we can have great candidates on the ballot, but if we don't have like our players on the ground watching to prevent the shenanigans, I think we're going to lose. So I immediately got involved on the election integrity part, working with all the grassroots organizations who were all doing their own things separately. So my job was to bring all of them into one room and have them all talk to each other. So when we all talked to each other, we kind of put our heads together and we said, well, these are the areas where we need to focus. So, and Laura and Chairman Whatley were really focused on recruiting all these full challengers, workers, inspectors. So we said, since the RNC is focusing on that, let's all align with them and also just make sure that, we have a great SOS, as everybody knows, that is really, really very irritating in terms of how she goes against election integrity in every form and fashion. So we said, well, we have to put her on defense by filing all these lawsuits because of her, unlawful guidance that she kept giving to all the clerks. So all the lawsuits, we were just kind of giving them the documents that they need, like the paperwork or the case studies that RNC needs to file all the cases. And recruiting, nonstop recruiting of inspectors, because we say, well, we have 500, but by the day they get a call from the clerk, 30% drop off. So we had to. This was like a constant process that we had to keep going. We had like we set up like a call center where we call, pick up, and then talk to all these people saying that, did you get a call from the clerk? If you get a call, these are the questions you need to ask. Or yeah, all of that, making sure they all get trained, making sure that the lists are submitted in time, making sure that we have these lawsuits that we filed, and make sure that the clerks enforce and they adhere to the judgments that have been issued, to have parity. We didn't have parity, but at least we were in a much better shape than in 2020. We at least made sure we have one Republican poll inspector at every absentee counting board. So I thought, like, the fact that there is a Republican at the board is going to prevent a lot of problems that we had back in 2020, because we didn't have any Republicans on the table, and whoever the challenger was not really allowed to ask challenge anything because of the COVID rules. And this time we have, after the Prop 2, we lost our ability to really do anything with the challenging and watchers. So we kind of knew that challengers and watchers are going to be our eyes and ears, but they really don't have as many rights. So it is important that we have a seat at the table, literally and figuratively, as a poll inspector. So that we kind of feel that the aggressive nature of how all the grassroots organizations worked in conjunction with RNC's idea of implementing things kind of brought about the results that we have today.
Well, and that's really amazing that you took it upon yourself to be able to coordinate all that, because, I feel like, and you all probably sense the frustration too, everybody just wants to help. We were all so excited to have President Trump as our nominee, and we wanted to put him over the line. And there's all these different people who want to help, and being able to funnel that, that's really a testament to your work there, that you were, and to do that in Wayne County too, which, I mean, for our listeners, tell them what Wayne County is, where it is, and what the big city there is.
Yeah, Wayne County is always a challenge. It's I don't want to single it out, but everybody knows every one of the swing states has one such county that we can talk about, and Wayne County is definitely our Achilles tendon.
Yeah. Well, and interestingly enough, I know, Rob, we talked prior to the election, and one thing that you mentioned to me that I was not aware of, I'm in Kentucky. We were not a swing state. There was no question. We were very thrilled to be the first state, in fact, to be called for President Trump on Tuesday night. But we weren't seeing a lot of activity here because we didn't need it. We knew what our job was. But Rob, you had mentioned some of the outreach that was being done, particularly with different minority groups and things within your state. Can you comment a little bit? Because I thought it was pretty interesting that the Trump team had things going on for months that even some of us who were so tied in had no idea they were doing, and it seemed to really make a difference in the final outcome of the election. Can you comment a little bit about those activities and the people involved?
Yeah, absolutely, Casey. And I want to make one follow-up point on Hima's comments on Wayne County. On election night, Project Veritas was putting all these videos of activity, and they're saying, oh, these are ballots coming in and they're cheating again and all that kind of stuff. And that's not what was going on. We were involved in the entire process and walkthroughs all week long, knowing exactly what and when these ballots and the tabulators and everything was going to be moved. And we were participating in that. And so, I mean, the difference between 4 years ago and now was just incredible. And it's hard to stop people because, people, controversy creates clicks, and clicks create revenue. And so there was a lot of stuff like that. For all the great work that goes on, a lot of times it's hard to get the right information out there. And, but things like that in Michigan, anyway, we were involved in all of those passages of the ballots and tabulators and poll books, and there was nothing nefarious at all in any of those videos, but it's hard to convince people. But on the outreach stuff, of course, when I was in med school, I worked in an auto plant, auto parts, UAW and all that. And so we have very active Auto Workers for Trump group is a group that was real busy. And our margin in Macomb County went up about 20,000 versus last election. And that's a lot of auto workers up there. Tiffany, Trump's father-in-law, is from Lebanon originally, a businessman, very, very successful. And he's been in and out of the state for months on end, meeting with various leaders and talking with people. And as people saw on the news, we had the Muslim mayor of Dearborn Heights and the Muslim mayor of Hima both endorsed Trump. Dearborn mayor, who's a Democrat, a former state rep Democrat, he chose to stay out of it. But the fact that he chose to stay out of it is very, very important. Obviously, he obviously wasn't going to endorse Trump being a Democrat state rep, but he didn't want to endorse Harris either. And so we saw a swing there, probably about at least 30,000 votes, and Trump won both Dearborn and Dearborn Heights, two places that he obviously didn't win last time. But, you know, that whole transition in the Muslim community in particular started in 2020 and COVID and the whole blow up with people finding out what was being taught in the schools. And we had about a 25 to 35 point swing in Dearborn and Dearborn Heights in 2022, based almost entirely on the school issue and parents being in charge of their own kids and not having the government raise their children. And so that really opened the door for a lot of the Muslim community and Arab community to understand that, you know, in general, on the social and family issues, and, you know, they align much better with the Republicans than they do with the Democrats. And so that really helped open a lot of people to the process this time as well. And it was part of the difference. I mean, Trump ended up winning by 82,000 votes. He won the first election by 10,709 in 2016 and lost by about 150,000. So we had a big swing, you know, because 80,000, while fairly close, it's not, you know, there's nothing to complain about there on any of the fraud or any of the other stuff. So, and we also had the Albanians. I mean, we have an Albanian population in Michigan, and they were totally in. The Chaldean population, which is also, you know, a Middle Eastern group, Christian, they've been very strong for us as well. So we had a lot of different ethnic groups that were all pulling the lever for Republicans, and a lot of their big leaders pushing that and doing voter registration drives in addition to the voting.
So do you all, as a party, do you feel like you're in a great position? You know, now that we've brought in all these groups, you said their eyes were open during COVID and they've sort of stuck with us. I mean, do you feel like as a state party that we're going to be able to maintain these people moving forward? I mean, it seems like you guys have everything going, all cylinders going in the right direction there. You know, what are your thoughts about where we need to move now? We did a great job electing President Trump, and we're also excited. We're going to have midterms coming up, and I think a lot of people don't realize how we are in our roles. It's almost like we're thinking 2 and 4 years ahead. So how do you all feel like we can capture this momentum that you guys have had in Michigan?
Rob and I were talking about this the other day when we were going to the Grand Rapids rally, the final rally of the season. So I think this is what we see, like there is this huge shift from all these communities that were never in our tent before. But then now it is incumbent upon us to maintain these relationships. And we have to elect the vice chairs. Rob, yesterday we were having this call, like the district chairs were having a call. And this is, I think, something that we really need to focus on, because when we elect our new chairs this coming year, the coalition's chair, the ethnic chair, and these people really need to be given a mandate that this is their job, that they need to have continue the relationship with all these people that we have now brought into our tent. And that will be very important, because we only have to build upon it and bring more and more of those people into our community. Now that many of them know that we all stand for the same values. I think that once the message, I mean, I think it was an icebreaker for us. Yes, in the Dearborn community, 2022 was an icebreaker. And now we have made, you know, so much gain in that community. Black community, we have seen, you know, I think 11-point shift. So, you know, and Chaldean community, which was always Republican, but majority of them like would not really vote. But this time with Tiffany Trump's father-in-law, like really galvanizing his base, brought up a lot of Chaldean community to come out and vote. So we have seen that everybody was doing their best to bring out all these communities to, you know, come and vote the Republican way. We just have to make sure that we continue that and maintain it by electing vice chairs who have this mandate to do it.
Well, and it's exciting too, because we do have President Trump, and I think what we're going to see, at least my hope, and I know, I mean, we're going to see a lot of change quickly. I think that is going to back up why the people voted for him. So, I mean, it's an exciting time to be a Republican. It's an exciting time to be a Republican in a state like Michigan, even. And, you know, I know Dr. Rob, you are rounding this afternoon, and I just want to make sure, like before we close up, that I give you all the opportunity to tell anybody who wants to get involved. You can take it, from the perspective of how they get involved in Michigan, or just in general, how you would encourage them to get involved and active with the Republican parties. And also, if you don't mind, if you have Twitter or any social media that you want to like tell people to get on and follow, I'd love for you all to share that. And we'll also put it out as well. So Rob, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. On X at Rob Steele MD, and I was batting back against Project Veritas best I could when they were putting that stuff out, but it's hard to make project. But yeah, and one thing I would just say for all your listeners who are learning about this, obviously this time, obviously when Trump ran in 2016, his entire election and victory was basically dependent on the RNC because he had no prior campaign team or any activity. And then in 2020, we had kind of parallel organizations. He had the campaign and the RNC had various things they were taking care of. But it was a huge benefit this time where the RNC and the Trump campaign really were much more a single organization with a single data director, a single political director, and then, of course, the co-chair, the Trump campaign being Chair Whatley, the chief of staff. And so that whole combination of working together really streamlined things and really made a huge difference at the RNC. And I'm sure, obviously, new candidates when we have our next election, because another thing most people don't understand about the RNC is that there's the NRSC looking after the House, the Senate, the NRCC looking after the House, and the RNC, runs basically everything having to do with with the president. The debates, the selection site for the convention, the nominating convention, and then every voter in the United States gets to vote for the legal voter gets to vote for the president. So we're keeping all the data and all that for them, and so we really focus on the president. And when we have a new candidate, they'll probably have some of their preferences as well. But I think the RNC of this last year, with things being combined, was very helpful for this campaign. And they think the Trump Force 47 stuff on the ground, I think that's gotten a lot of people involved on the ground level with the Trump Force 47 situation. And then most of those people were precinct delegates, but a lot of them weren't. So when people are getting involved, that's often the first step. In our state, they're called precinct delegates. And they make up the backbone of the party. It's the first elected office in the party. And then, the precinct delegates go to the county convention. And then in our state, the county convention, about half of them go to the state convention. And for our state, the state convention picks, the position that Hima and I are in and nominates our Secretary of State, our Supreme Court Justice. They actually do a lot. I mean, they have a lot of power, actually. So, people are encouraged to get involved, learn about the process, and see what happens.
You bring up a great point. And while it was a lot of work, particularly from a financial standpoint, because we took on the entire campaign, it was so beneficial to be in that position where we were working together with the campaign. And I know it was so valuable to us, even in a state like Kentucky, which I can imagine for you all too, to expand your grassroots. And the efforts we just talked about was the sharing of all the volunteers that were coming in for Trump 47, many of who were new volunteers. We were in Kentucky, even we were getting hundreds of names a week of people volunteering and calling into other states. And so it has been valuable to us as we try to grow and expand, our supermajorities here in the state to be able to have those grassroots contacts now. Hima, you had a much different path. What advice would you give to people who want to get involved?
Yes, I always, because I come from, I always call myself an outsider because I had to choose the party, right? It's, I always say that I think we have in the past not ever looked at certain communities because we wrote them off. For example, the moment I say Detroit, people are like, oh, why do you want to waste your time on Detroit? I'm like, that kind of thinking is what led us to like alienating these groups. But then when we have a candidate like President Trump who can relate with a common man, although he's a billionaire, like he can still kind of understand pain of a person that is living paycheck to paycheck. I think that's what people want from a candidate. And if we can also open up ourselves and reach out to these people and continue to make gains. Like for right now, I'm actually talking to a few people that are very active in the Detroit area. And if we can I mean, right now we are at 18%, but if we can actually move that needle to 30%, there's no turning back for Michigan, because every single time we think we are winning the election, then the Wayne County results come in, and then that's it. It's a blowout. So it goes against us. But if we can move 30% of that population to our side, there is no chance Democrats will ever win the state, because they completely rely on Wayne State, and us giving up on Wayne County is what is the problem. So that is what I keep saying, that we have to do something new, something different, because otherwise it will be insanity doing the same thing over and over again.
Hima, before I forget, also, can you give us your Twitter handle? I almost forgot to ask.
I'm not a big social media person. I do have Twitter. It's the Hima #4 RNC.
Okay, perfect. Well, Rob, I know you have to probably go save patients this afternoon, or make sure that you keep them alive. And Hima, I know you're running a very busy business, and I'm just so grateful for both of you taking the time to explain more about your state of Michigan and how you all produced a big victory for President Trump this week. It's truly an honor for me to be able to serve with both of you all, and I just am so grateful for your time. So thank you so much, and you all have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Casey.
Rob.
Great to see you.
Thanks, Rob. See you all. I want to thank Dr. Rob Steele, the National Committeeman from Michigan, as well as his counterpart, Ms. Hima Kolanagireddy, for being on our program today. It was so exciting to hear about all their efforts and everything that happened in Michigan to make sure that President Trump won. And I am so looking forward to seeing them in January, where we're going to have a big celebration.